Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Okay, everybody, it's Tom Foster here for the World of Marketing, and this is our GLM Summit Special Edition. I just made that up. But my first guest here is a great friend of mine, great client, Michael Monteforte.
Hey, Tom. Thank you for asking me to sit in with you today.
So Michael is one of my favorite students. He's a client of ours that has been a estate planning lawyer in
correct.
Boston, right outside of Boston.
Just outside of Boston, a few minutes away.
And so I'm going to just ask you a couple of questions about your background. So how did you get into estate planning law?
It's funny. The short answer is I got into it because of my grandparents. When I first started out as a lawyer, I worked for a small firm, and eventually I maxed out there and decided to go out on my own, and I was doing a little bit of everything, a little bit of real estate, a little bit of divorce, a little bit of estate planning. I was taking whatever came in the door just to keep the lights on while I was trying to figure out, what I wanted to specialize in, and I really had no clue for a long time. And fate stepped in, I guess you could say, because it got to the point with my grandparents, who I had a very, very close relationship with. They had decided to move into assisted living. My grandfather's health was not so great, and it seemed like the assisted living was going to be the short-term answer, and ultimately he was going to be destined for some type of long-term care, nursing home care. And I am the only lawyer in my family, and they were all looking to me saying, okay, Mike, what do we do? What can we do? Can we do anything to protect the assets that, my grandparents worked so hard to earn over their lives? They had paid off their home and they had some savings, and my grandfather worked multiple jobs for them to get to that point. And my grandparents and their kids were concerned about them losing all of their money to nursing home care and running out while care was still needed. So they're all asking me, what do we do? Can we do anything? Can we hold on to their assets of their home? And at the time, the answer was, what? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm going to find out. And at that point, I just decided then and there that I was going to learn all that I could about estate planning, elder law, Medicaid planning, to try and find some way to help my grandparents in any way that I could. And I immersed myself in it. I took every continuing ed, bought every book, talked to other estate planning lawyers. And the more I learned about it, the more I figured out that, yes, there is a need for this type of thing, because lots of folks don't have anywhere to turn. They don't know what to do. The landscape's confusing. There are so many rules. The rules are ever changing. And, I realized, there was a need for it, but I also was really enjoying the subject and the ability to be able to help people through those tough times. And so I did what I could for my grandparents. They've both now since passed on. But I think of them every day, and the people that I help now that are in similar situations as to what they were, their age, same time in their lives, going into long-term care, assisted living, that sort of thing. When I help those people, I feel like I'm still making my grandparents proud. I'm hoping that, somehow, somewhere they can see me and that they're smiling and that, I'm making them proud going in and doing this every day. So that's my long-winded answer as to how I got into it.
And is this grandfather the one that you're doing the scholarship program with?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So my grandfather was a baseball umpire and a football referee all his life, through his working life, and long since after he retired from full-time work, he was still doing baseball games and football games all over New England. At different points in his life, he was the president of New England football officials and New England baseball officials as well. He loved it. He was passionate about it. And from when the time, we were little kids, we used to try on his referee gear and umpire pads and things like that, up through when I was in high school and I played football. He refereed some of my games. I remember him telling me that I needed to get back or he was going to call me for offsides. And I have no doubt he would have called it on me if I hadn't moved, but he did give me a chance to move back before throwing the flag. So it was helpful to have my grandfather as the ref for that game. And since he's passed away, we were trying to figure out some way to honor him. And he was so passionate about sports, about baseball and football, that I said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to create, his name was Albert Iamelli. We're going to create the Albert Iamelli Sportsmanship Award. We're going to do one for a baseball player and one for a football player, and we're going to provide a scholarship that they can use towards college, and it's going to be in my grandfather's name, and it's just a way that we thought something that, again, would make him smile to know.
So, Mike, I've talked to you a couple times on the phone about this scholarship program, and I think I've mentioned Jeffrey Meldon.
Yes.
Who's the guy that kind of started all this in my mind. He's here, by the way. I'll introduce you to him.
Yeah, that'd be great. I checked out his website.
Yeah, and just because he's been doing it so long, he has the news coming. He does it every week.
Wow.
And then he has an annual, best of kind of where they give away a lot of dough. So anyway,
absolutely,
it's good stuff, and it's thank you for sharing that. It's great that you have tied your what you do for a living to something that you feel passionate about,
right?
That inspires you, and we talk about that.
Absolutely,
do something that inspires you, that gets you excited about, right?
Right. It took me a long time to get there, trying to figure out different areas of practice. And, at first I kind of found out what I didn't like,
right.
but it still took me a while to figure out what I liked and what I enjoyed and my reason for enjoying it. So it's just something that, again, makes me feel like I'm making my grandparents proud. He left me a ring when he passed away, and it's got the baseball insignia on it. My son's a ball player, so that's the ring he left me. Yeah, absolutely. And so I have it in a glass case in my office on a shelf, and I look at it every day, and it just reminds me of him, when I come in the morning and when I shut the lights off at night.
Yeah, good for you. So we talk about this, about kind of how the difficulty of marketing estate planning. It's difficult to market anything, but you're trying to get people to recognize, one day you're going to be dead.
Right.
And you need to take care of the people that are left here. I mean, That's it in a nutshell.
It really is.
And people don't think about that stuff when they're leaving their house every day.
No, they definitely don't. And, my family, they're old school Italians, and that older generation, it's taboo to even talk about it. Somebody passing away, or the fact that we're not going to live forever. So, I mean, I struggled with that, even with my own grandparents, trying to give them advice and tell them what to do. And they were resistant to it because they just didn't like to discuss it. And that's one of the hurdles that, I have to try and get people over that hump and say, if we discuss it now and we put things in place, we don't have to talk about it every day after that, because you've got things put together. And so that's the hard part, because it's not a fun subject for people to talk about. They don't want to think about it.
So when people like your current clients come to you, who's usually coming? Is it the children, or is it the person, the couple wanting the estate plan, or what is it generally?
Sure, it's a little bit of both. Sometimes I get older folks that are retired and are starting to get concerned about long-term care. Long-term care might still be on the horizon, but it's coming, and they know it, and they want to try to prepare for it, so they'll come and see me. Sometimes it's the children, and they're dragging their parents in, kicking and screaming sometimes, and they once they sit down with me and I explain what's what, usually I can persuade them that this is something that's important.
It's really important, because it's protecting your assets from the IRS and the government from coming in and taking
exactly.
it. If you don't tell people where to send your money, the government will come in and take it.
They will absolutely come in and take it, and if you don't plan for it, it'll go to long-term care and disappear. And with the astronomical costs of long-term care nowadays, savings and home equity values can be depleted very, very quickly. So the key is to plan early, and that's what I try to impress upon people, because if they come to me when it's too late, now we're talking about crisis planning. Sure. And it's not as effective.
So Is it difficult to do estate planning legal work?
It has its ups and downs. The landscape changes all the time. The
Everybody's
laws change
different.
all the time. Every state is different. So we've got federal programs like Medicaid that have federal rules, but then where I am in Massachusetts, we put our own spin on it because we have to be different. And so we have Massachusetts rules that don't always agree with the federal rules. And so it is something that you have to definitely stay on top of. You need to really have a passion for it and specialize in it, because I have to attend continuing ed all the time, meetings with other estate planning attorneys all the time, so we find out what's going on with the case law and with the statutes. But that's also part of what I like about it, is that it's changing and it's different. So it's not, the same humdrum every day, because, I have to stay on top of it, on top of the rules.
And the more successful client is, the more complicated the estate plan tends to be.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, the more kids they have, the more assets they have.
The more kids they have, and sometimes we've got extended families,
Right.
or I've got clients that are on their second or third marriages, and they have kids from different spouses. And so in those types of situations, their plans can become more complex to make sure everybody is taken care of in the way that that the client wants.
So you've got some people that come that are those people that are planners. They're logistic.
Yes.
You've got this. This is on our checklist of things that we have to get done. Where we just turned 50 and
Right.
or whatever. Those are great.
Yeah.
But those are few and far between.
They are. Every once in a while, I'll get an email with someone asking for a consult, and they'll give me a spreadsheet that has
Right.
all their assets and
that's
liabilities,
right.
and that's great, but
Right.
it doesn't happen often.
That's like us getting a spreadsheet of logins to all the different Google.
Right.
Yeah. I think we're still waiting on yours.
Oh,
I'm
no.
just
I
kidding.
gave you mine right
I
away.
know you're very
I'm one of those
organized.
spreadsheet
You are.
guys.
And speaking of, so when when you and I first started working together many months ago, trying to come up with ideas
Right.
about how do we get people's attention? Because you got to knock them off their game of the day, wherever they're thinking about, and they're not thinking about estate planning.
No. Like you said, no one walks out the door in the morning thinking about, their estate plan.
Well, they're not thinking about the last thing that they want to think about is talking to a lawyer.
Right.
They don't, they're not, they could be injured. They're not thinking about that. They're not thinking about if they're going to get a DUI. They're not thinking about if they're going to get charged for a crime or whatever.
Right.
So you've got to be there when they have something happen to them.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things that you've taught me so far along the way, Tom, is I'm trying to figure out how can I make this subject matter interesting to anybody, because no one wants to just sit down and talk about a will or talk about a trust. It's very rare to find somebody that wants to do that. So I have to tie it in with something that interests them, like things in pop culture or current events.
Unfortunately, you have some gift in writing, and you write well, and you've taken that and you've written some really creative, cool stuff. We were talking about when we were thinking. I think the first thing that it was like in April. And I don't even know how we got on the subject. The Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I think the finale was coming up, and we
were
just
like,
mentioned it in passing.
Like, what do you think about it? And we were like, it's not as good as it was, and da 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 da. And then we were like, maybe that's what you should talk about to your list of estate plan for Jon Snow.
It was funny. We were talking about it, and I think Connie, who was on the call with us, had no idea what we were talking about because she was not a Game of Thrones fan, and so she just said, "Okay, I'll let you guys do it." But
any kind of fictional character, you could do something like that. And you went on to do something with the Avengers, and because the Endgame movie came out, and that's just attaching yourself to pop culture or what's going on in the news. You just did a great one on Rick Ocasek's unfortunate passing.
Correct. And you and I talked a little bit about that during our last call. It was a guy that had Boston roots. And it reminded me of simpler times, I guess, when I was a kid and listening to Top 40 radio and, the Cars music and enjoying it. And I just thought, all right, here's a way to tie. People my age are going to get it.
Yeah, exactly. And
when I
those are your
post about
perfect clients.
And it was funny. The first person that sent me a text after I put it up was my cousin, and he was actually who I was thinking about when I wrote it, because he and I.
Didn't you even put that in
I
there?
did.
Like, I think
did.
you said like my cousin and I. Yeah. That's so funny too, because that whole car, like that was the first band that I like. What was it? I think I was 10 or 11 when they came out.
Right.
78.
Yeah.
And my cousins introduced them to me, and I remember being at the beach and them playing the Cars on the turntable.
Sure.
And so that's complete beach music to me, the Cars.
Yeah.
And so when you said my cousin, because that was my cousin too, we kind of grew up on that.
I went back and looked at a couple of their videos on YouTube, their old MTV videos, which were innovative at the time with the graphics and cartoons and things like that. And they were cutting edge back in the 80s. Absolutely.
But so that some people that are listening or watching this are like, what the hell does that have to do with law? And I encourage people to go check out your website and read some of those blog posts that you've added. And what you've done is you take these interesting, provocative, funny, relevant articles, and you put them on your website, and then you email your list saying, here, you might be interested in this.
Right.
And your list is your friends and family and past clients.
Absolutely. A lot of them my age, and they see it and it resonates with them right away.
And the first one that you did, that was the Game of Thrones, you got a couple of clients off of that.
I did, absolutely. And I wrote that before the finale came out, so I actually had to go back and change it a little bit after the finale. I did a little bit of added to it a little bit because the show didn't end up the way I thought it was. And I said, okay, I got to go revise my estate plan now.
Yeah. And that's funny. And then, but what I loved is that how you linked it to other, actual real documents or library articles on your website that had to do with the reality of the legalities of, right?
Yeah.
So, folks, I mean, like, Mike has just done a great job doing this, and just kind of staying on it. You've even got your daughter interviewing you.
I do. I have two kids. My daughter is a sophomore in high school, and she's the potential lawyer of the two. And my son, I'm not so sure. He's the ball player. I think he still thinks he's going to play for the Red Sox.
He could be the celebrity endorser.
But my daughter Gabby, is not camera shy. She was ready to come in and interview me and ask me the questions. Funny. She's ready to do it again.
Well, I mean, like that's really the lesson here for everybody that's listening to this, is what you've been able to do with your little law firm here. It battled in a very difficult area, right? I mean, you have a lot of competition.
Absolutely.
And what we're just talking about is how you compete without really competing with the big guys, because no one can compete with your name.
No
one can compete with the relationships. Well, yeah, that too.
Sure.
You got a great name. It's a great name, but I mean, like, nobody can compete. Even if you had Joe Smith as your name,
right?
People that know you are going to come to you first. People are going to ask you if you can help them,
right?
Just like your family did way back when, even though you weren't doing that.
Yeah.
They're like, you're a lawyer. Don't you know how to do everything?
Don't you know everything about every type of law there is? And, I didn't know it at the time, but that's how I came to my life's work.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I would suggest you write that up, and that could be another kind of tie into the scholarship program.
Think, absolutely. I think when clients come in, most of them, I end up it's the way I introduce myself, is telling them a little bit about how I got into the field in the first place. I used to be afraid to mix my family life with my work. I didn't like to give too much away of my personal life to clients, but I found out that those stories are what people want to hear.
A lot of lawyers, that's a good message, because a lot of lawyers don't share their personal. All the bios that you see are not, it's their CV. It's not about them. And the reality is that people buy from people they like.
Right.
That includes lawyers and doctors and any kind of professional, especially there, because people want to work with somebody that they can trust. And it's so important that a lawyer, especially when it's having to do with sensitive issues, is empathetic and shows empathy.
Right.
And anyway, and so for people that know you, that's why your list is so important, and that's why when you're adding content, sure, we hope that the search engines might pick up some of that stuff.
Right.
But really, you're speaking, and like you said, I was thinking of my cousin when you were writing that out.
Yes.
And that's what you want to do, is that you want to think of somebody like a perfect client. That's who you're speaking to when you're writing your content. And then not only, putting it out there for Google to pick up, you hope, but also to syndicate it to your list of people that love you and adore you.
Absolutely. And yeah, my cousin was the first one that replied once that one came out. But then, lots of other friends from school and that sort of thing that are on my list that haven't necessarily ever hired me for anything commented about it. And I know I'm on their radar. And
exactly. And when they need a lawyer, and see, that's what everybody needs to understand, is that this is not an immediate, like this marketing that we're doing, this information, education, marketing, brand awareness marketing, reminding people on your list, I'm your lawyer.
Right.
That's what this is.
It's a process.
And, I the first one, the Game of Thrones, I was like, wow, that was like a perfect storm put together. You actually got two, I think, that's what you told me, two deals out of that email.
Two directly from that.
Immediately,
yes.
And then you had a couple others that you were working on.
Correct.
And so that's what you're doing, is you're planting seeds with this stuff, folks.
Right.
I mean, and you're reminding people so that when they do need a lawyer, they're going to call you before they go out to the internet and do a search for some general thing.
Exactly.
So, Mike, is there any advice that you want to give other lawyers that are kind of maybe a few steps behind you?
Well, I tell you, so I've been a lawyer for 18 years now, and I wish that I had realized the importance of marketing a lot sooner than I did, from those days when I first started and was, begging the phone to ring and not really knowing what to do and how to market to people and how to stay relevant and keep myself in front of them. It's something that, I've been working on, Tom, with you, and really just over the last year is I'm finally starting to feel like I'm doing a good job at it. And I wish it is something that I had looked into much sooner, invested more time and effort in much sooner. I think I'd be further along now if I had done that.
Well, it's so funny. That's always what we say, is that the best day to have done this was way back when. The next best day is today.
Right. And if my daughter ends up deciding that she's going to be a lawyer, this is from day one. This is what she's going to be doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to have her talking to you.
Yeah, marketing. You got to pay the bills.
That's right.
All right, Michael, great talking to you. Thank
too.
you so much for being a client and doing the good work. As you know, everybody here, I'm always touting your stuff and showing off your stuff. It's part of the lesson that I give them, as you're one of the people that I show off. So I'm really proud of what you've done and really proud to have you as a client. So thanks so much, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I will sing the praises of you personally, Tom, and your company and your team just from here till my last day, because you guys have helped me turn my practice around and as a result turn my life around. So I owe you a great debt for that, and I appreciate it.
Wow, that was very nice. Thank you very much, brother.
It's deserved. You definitely earned
man.
it. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, Michael. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right, everybody. This is Tom Foster for the World of Marketing. Talk to you soon. Thank you.